What is going on, everybody? Voidlego here, back with a brand new episode of Higurashi When They Cry. Last time we were on, we had just talked to Oshi-san once again. We talked about a few things and how every case connects back to our group of friends. And we also got paid a visit by both Rena and Mion, which had a disturbing secret inside of one of the dumplings. So, yeah, let's just get right into it. Oh, before I forget, thank you for all the comments. I do read them. It is very much appreciated, and keep it up. So, yeah, let's keep on going. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of muffled footsteps stopped in front of the door to my room. A moment of silence, as if whomever they belonged to was ascertaining if I was inside. Of all the things I should have been doing, I continued on with my listless slumber. I was very much conscious, but my body hadn't caught up yet, even with danger bearing down on me from just beyond the door. It was as if I was completely paralyzed, unable to move. Without a doubt, this was sheer terror. Please, just leave. Hey, why isn't my body awake yet? If they came into my room right now, then... I swung to my feet, threw my covers at my mom, who was opening the door. Fuck. Everything, Mom? I thought it was still 1 or 2 a.m., but the morning sun was already streaming through the gap between the curtains. It felt nothing like morning. Yesterday I must have fallen asleep right after that. Then I should have gotten a full 10 hours of rest, but it didn't feel like that at all. My eternal clock was completely screwed up and my sense of balance felt off. I felt feverish enough that it was clear to me that I was still not well. I felt far from well enough. No, I wasn't mentally fit to go. I was still plagued with the terror from yesterday. If I had swallowed that needle, what would have happened? Or what if it had pierced my tongue? There was undoubtedly a murderous intent, but I don't think that's all it was. If they really wanted to kill me, then there were other, more certain ways to do it. They wouldn't resort to such a dubious method as having me swallow a needle. Meaning, I didn't want to believe it, but going that far was just a threat from Rena and Mion. Aren't you glad you didn't die? But next time we'll use a more assured method. Like that. Something wetter with a laser inside would have been a joke compared to this. Something about my mom's dubious gaze bothered me. She seemed more concerned about her son missing 2 days of school rather than him being sick. It was definitely mental fatigue. I wasn't really physically ill. But Mom, my friends are going to kill me. Yeah, sure, honey. I'd heard that line many times before. I was given an award in elementary school for having perfect attendance, but it wasn't like I was healthier than everyone. Mom's tone meant I couldn't argue about it, so I had to give up on skipping a second day. I didn't feel particularly guilty for doing it, so I didn't have much of a reaction. Also, Mom didn't question me any further about it. She headed back downstairs after she was certain I was getting up. What Mion said as she left yesterday, I'd hate it if you missed school tomorrow, came back and dwelled in the back of my head. What did she mean by that? I didn't even have to really think about it. She was saying, don't be absent. Taking that a bit further, it was the same as her saying I should just go about living my life as if nothing happened. If I showed any signs of acting unusual, it would probably result in them making their move. If I acted differently, someone like Oshi-san, for example, might end up noticing that something is up. Meaning, if I didn't watch my mouth or did anything differently from the norm, in effect it would end up communicating something to those who were undesirable. And it seems that was something that the girls didn't intend to forgive. So, if I just went along as normal, no harm would come to me. Was that how it was going to be? All that misery I experienced up until yesterday would almost creep away, just fade away. It was an enticing deal. Just by forgetting everything I'd seen or heard these last few days, I'd be able to keep on living on like normal. I mean, to live in ignorance is truly bliss, but I swallowed hard. I once again deliberated on the idea that I just rejected. Mion was probably a good person who had her friends at heart. She was just giving me, who had mistakenly broken some rule of theirs, a chance. Was what I did really something so unforgivable? But Mion had given me another chance. She was saying, if I just forgot everything and kept living on like I had been, I'd be forgiven. I crammed my textbooks into my bag and hastily made my way downstairs. I picked at my somewhat bland breakfast. It seemed that I didn't have much time. It was already past when I usually met up with Lorna. Given yesterday's event, she'd probably be here in the next 5 minutes. I needed to be ready to head to school by then. I had to forget everything that had happened in the past 2 days. Forget it all and return to my normal life. For this to be normal, I'll have to be where I normally meet up with Lena. Today, of all days, the ice was dry and hard to get down. Ding dong. I jumped at the sound and dropped my chopsticks. That chime signaled that Lena had arrived. Mom hurried me along. My mother's merry smile and my gloomy face were polar opposites. Honestly, I was reluctant to see Lena, who was waiting there on the other side of the door. The Lena on the other side was it the Lena I knew? I couldn't keep her waiting. I needed to do things as usual. An invigorating greeting filtered in from across the doorway. The manner in which Lena was concerned was, without a doubt, the Lena I knew. But that was probably only if I reciprocated. Forget everything from yesterday, pretend as though nothing had happened. Forget about the gruesome dismemberment. Forget about the mysterious deaths that happened the following years. Forget about the people falling to their death and terminal illness and suicide, the fatal beatings and the disappearances. Forget it. Forget all of it. Forget that Rena and Mion were scary. Of course, forget it all. Forget about all of it. Forget about the mochi too. Forget. Rena, once again, asked to make sure. Lena showed me her usual bright smile. God, every word now just seems fucking so, has this underlying, horror to it. Oh, it's so good. I couldn't find any hint of deceit in her expression. My nervousness dissipated, giving way to relief. As we were walking, Lena talked about a lot of different stuff, more so than usual.
ちゃん不吉祥だから何度やってもできないの。かいかったんだよ。
Everything Lena talked about was just silly nonsense, so I just replied every so often and laughed from time to time. It was a rather laid-back conversation. We passed by one of our neighbors and they called out to us.
あれケイチちゃんにレナちゃん、今日はちょっと遅いんじゃないの？ミオンちゃん先に行くって言ってたわよ。
みーちゃん怒ってるかな。怒ってるかな。早く行こう、ケイチ君。
After greeting our neighbor with a smile, Lena turned back to me and poked her tongue out. Not expecting that, I couldn't help but crack a smile.
ケイチ君笑った。
なんだよ。
Lena stopped and stared at me. Oh god, no.
ケイチ君、今朝もなんか元気なかったからまだ風邪が治らないのかなって思ってたけど大丈夫みたいだね。だね。
Yep, everything's just fine. With a grin, she gently poked my cheek. It was a bright, sincere smile. Hey, Kechi Maebawa. How can you still doubt Lena after she shows you a smile like that? Maybe I just had a high fever up until today, and I imagined everything that I thought happened because I was bedridden and delirious. I really hope that was the case. If God would grant me just one wish, there's only one thing that I'd wish for. I would want what had happened in the past few days, more specifically from the night of the Higurashi up until last night. I wanted all of that to have never happened. I wondered how many times I wished for these past few days. As long as Lena kept on smiling like this, I think it might just become reality. So I wanted Lena to keep on smiling. Keep on smiling.
で、ケイチ君、
Please don't.
昨日のおはぎちゃんと食べてくれた？
That vain wish of mine was instantly shattered. My heart began palpitating. The relaxed morning mood suddenly became fidgeted. Lena's smile was the same as usual. Her eyes were as gentle as usual. Those mochi yesterday, did you eat them all? Of course, she wasn't asking the question at face value. In other words, Lena was asking, did you get the message? She was probably trying to convey that.
ケイチ君、
I was reluctant to give an answer. Lena stopped walking and stared deeply into my eyes. Don't hesitate, Kechi Maebawa. Lena was acting the same as always, wasn't she? I needed to respond in my usual way. Naturally, of course, but both my throat and mouth had gone dry and my lips were stuck together. Hurry and answer, Kechi. Not that much time had passed. I could still keep the conversation going naturally. I had to say something quickly. Lena playfully mimicked what I had said when I finally squeaked something out. Lena's reaction was still normal. It seems that there wasn't as long of a pause as I thought. Somehow I finally squeezed out the rest. However, my strained efforts neither sullied nor brightened Lena's expression. For a moment I panicked, thinking I had replied incorrectly. But after a few moments, Lena broke into her usual soft smile and giggled with a joyful voice that seemed to echo through the morning air. Being strung along by that laugh, I couldn't help but laugh as well.
そうなんだ。で、全部食べたのかな？かな？
My timid smile froze again. Did you make it without swallowing the sewing needle? Was that what she was asking? If I had swallowed it, then I wouldn't be here.
いや、全部は食べきれなかったからさ。まだ残ってるんだよ。
I was scared out of my wits, but that's how I played it.
あれれ？どれがレナが作ったのか当てる宿題はどうなっちゃったのかな？
あの宿題って今日までだったっけ？
うん、今日までなんだよ。みーちゃん怒るよ。きっと罰ゲームだね。
We both laughed at each other again. To a casual observer, it was just a typical morning. If I could just let myself believe, then even I'd think it was just the usual morning routine. But I was certain I wasn't mistaken. There was something unimaginable buried beneath the facade of this giggling Lena. I recalled that unexpected, piercing voice that I could hardly believe came from Lena's mouth. The moment that image crossed my mind, I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. Was it only at that particular time that something evil had possessed Lena? No, that was wrong. That was still Lena. Oshi-san told me, didn't he?
実は調べてみたらリュウグウさんは引っ越しの少し前に
By
学
breaking
校
all
で
the
謹慎処
windows.
分を受けているんですよ。
Yeah.
なんでも学校中のガラスを割って回ったんだとか。
Lena had a disorder that normal people didn't. No matter how pleasantly she smiled, that fact would not change. But I couldn't even imagine how she looked as she broke all the glass throughout the school. One thing I knew was that it wasn't something spur of the moment. If it was some sudden outburst of rage, and maybe she'd break a pane or two. But she broke all of the windows all throughout her school. Just imagine going through your own school, breaking the windows with a bat. Swinging full force at each point of glass, one after another, paying no heed to the flying shards. Your classmates, aghast, unable to move from the sudden turn of events. I wonder where she could have found the most windows lined up in a row. Probably the hallway. Smash, walk, wind up, smash, walk, wind up, smash. It was difficult for me to connect that horrifying image with the one smiling at me right now. But I just had to imagine it. Impossible because it was unimaginable. That naive way of thinking no longer worked. The unpleasant, piercing sound of shattered glass, the crunchy noises when it treads across the broken shards, walking towards me. Lena's classmates going pale as they forget to even breathe. I wonder what they did as Lena came closer, breaking windows along her path. Did they earnestly try to bring her to her senses by saying something? Or did they jump at her, trying to stop her savagery? Or did they run to the staff room to call for the teachers? Probably none of those. In the face of that blood-curdling sight of Lena busting window after window, undoubtedly all they could do was silently clear a path for her. Dumbfounded, just clearing the path for Lena to continue. It would be cruel to blame anyone for looking the other way. No, they weren't simply looking the other way. They knew it was the only way they could do to protect themselves. If they had done something differently from the West, they may have suddenly found themselves as Lena's new target. But what did Lena have done to whoever attracted her attention? The answer was obvious. She would have undoubtedly acted according to her whims. Meaning I would, be the next window. Lena, staring into my eyes, shards of glass crunching and crackling underfoot as she drew closer. I was also drawn into her eyes, paralyzed. Then Lena struck me with the bat over and over again, like I was one of those windows. I crouched down onto the floor, desperately protecting my head. Lena didn't care whether it was my head or my back. Zealously, she hits me again and again. What kind of expression was she making as she was doing this over and over again? I peered up to see. Her expression was so indifferent. It was completely unnerving. It's because no matter how many times she struck me, I didn't make as pleasant a sound as the other windows. She struck me continuously, over and over again. The sound when I wanted didn't come out, Our classmates standing around and tried to stop her. They didn't want to be the next window. Somebody saved me, turning a blind eye unless we're hanging out. But of course, everyone in class scrambled to obtain the highest standardized test scores. They'd gain nothing from saving a cramped school tryhard like me. Eventually, there would be a faint sound, similar to when you crack open a walnut, and some sort of reddish-black spray would shoot out. Anyway, it wasn't that Lena momentarily lost herself in her anger. After forcing myself to believe and calming down my heart, I recalled what Oshi-san told me.
でですね、そのカウンセリングをした医師のカルテにレナ、その中に出てくるんですよ。
Oshiwa-san.
結構
何がです？
出てくるんですよ。お社様って単語が。
Following that, when I was suspended and had regular examinations at the hospital. Then, as when I was undergoing counseling, she said it over and over. Oshiwa-sama.
お社様っていう幽霊みたいなものがですね、夜な夜な自宅にやってくるっていうんですよ。
Maybe she interprets Oshiwa-sama as the one doing all this, possessing her to break all those windows in the school, maybe? Like, it's a hallucination. That's a plausible thing. Or maybe it is actually Oshiwa-sama as an actual spirit possessing her to do these things. Or maybe Oshiwa-sama is an actual curse that is over this entire village of Himizawa, killing outsiders for stepping out of line. Or maybe it's not.
枕元に立って自分を見下ろすんだって。
That was only a piece of their conversation, so I still couldn't see the big picture, but it was by no means a happy little conversation. Then what Mona did, was she saying that ghastly incident was a result of her being possessed by Oshiwa-sama? Exactly what was I saying? Up until now, I didn't want to believe in Oshiwa-sama's curse. That's why I wanted to say the mysterious deaths every year happened because of some sort of conspiracy. Every time I talked with Oshi-san, I was more certain that the deaths were the work of men and not of some curse. Except, if it was people perpetrating incidents, my friends were somehow deeply connected. If I refused to believe that the curse was real, then I would have to believe that those who attracted the act of kindness to me were deeply involved in the incidents. Why? How? For what reason? Was everybody... It was much more painful and troublesome than accepting that it was just Oshiwa-sama's curse. In the aftermath, Lena had admitted to her doctor that it was because she was possessed by Oshiwa-sama. I felt a strange sense of relief from that. So that's how it was. It is much easier to blame it on a mystical, more spiritual thing that you can't control over. It's a lot more comfortable to people than finding out the people closest to you are just like this. That they merely acted kind to you to pull you into this village. For what reason, I don't know. It's much more comfortable that, but to me, what I believe right now, I really think it is a conspiracy. I really do think it's a conspiracy. Why the friend group is involved in it, why they're killing outsiders, I don't know. But I don't think Oshiwa-sama's curse actually exists. There wasn't a second side to Lena. She did that because she was possessed by something strange like Oshiwa-sama. It wasn't Lena's fault. Oshiwa-sama was the one to blame. I knew this was all backwards. Refusing to believe there was a curse, I wanted there to be a human perpetrator. Now that my close friends were the ones under suspicion, I changed my beliefs at my own convenience, saying it was Oshiwa-sama's curse to blame. Which was the better choice, accepting that Oshiwa-sama's curse exists, or that Lena and the rest of them were deeply involved in the string of mysterious deaths. I didn't want to think about it. If I just didn't think about it, I'd be able to continue the same as always. I wanted to believe that, but that was no longer possible. I had received their message. It was pathetic of me to try and bend the meaning to my own convenience, regardless of whether my opponent were a human or a curse. I won't let it kill me. As if I would just bend over and give in, for no good reason at all.
圭一君、さっきから変な顔してる。なんでだろう。
In harrowing sharply upon hearing Wen's voice, I came back to my senses. Before I realized it, we were already at the entrance. Shaking my head a few times, I exercised all those terrifying thoughts. No matter how you looked at it, there's no way Wena could have done such terrible things. It was like I was trying to palpitate myself. Poisate myself. That's the word. As I slid the door open, a blackboard eraser loaded with chalk dropped down on my head the moment I stepped into the classroom. The chalk dust went into my eyes, inducing a brief moment of agony.
ずる休みの圭一さんにはお似合いですことよ。圭一もレナもおはようございますです。おはよう、さとこちゃんにリカちゃん。
Not quite in the mood for it, I didn't really react to Sadako's trap. Sadako braced herself as I passed by, expecting me to attack her. She seemed a bit disappointed as I simply walked by silently.
何なんですの？張り合いがありませんわ。圭一、まだ本調子じゃないみたいです。だから今日は加減してあげてね。
Suddenly, there was a slap down on my shoulder. It hurt a bit.
よっ、ケイちゃん、しっかり休んできた？
It was Mion. My mind was full with the stuff about Wena, but Mion was also a party of interest. Remember, Kechi, that hawkish gaze from yesterday.
ああ、おはよ
なんだなんだ、随分と覇気のない挨拶じゃん。差し入れのおはぎちゃんと食べてくれなかったの？
I'm like this because I ate them. Those words were itching to be blurted out.
う。やっぱ食欲がなくてさ。いくつかは食べたけど、だいぶ残しちゃったんだ。
あれ、じゃあ宿題は？どれがレナの手作りかってのの回答は？
圭一くん宿題忘れなんだって。
ありゃー、じゃあ仕方ないね。罰ゲーム。ひひひひひ。
Flashing a wutrid smile, Mion returned to her seat. There was nothing from our exchanges that would cause our classmates to suspect anything was amiss. But of course, anyone listening to our conversations up until this morning wouldn't see anything suspicious. That was why it was so frightening. They acted in a way that, regardless of whatever happened to Kechi Marabawa, no one would ever suspect them. That fact had me terrified. Soon the teacher came. After she asked how I felt and took attendance, another dull, ordinary day began. God, there's this underlying, horror to all of this, you know? And that's such a, great feeling, hard feeling to capture in a story. But once you do it, dude, oh my god. Now, I'm paranoid of every single goddamn, word. Every time I click the mouse, I'm afraid something bad's gonna happen, dude. It's paranoia. It's really fucking good feeling, though. This first study period was a convenient time to consider where I stood. I gently closed my eyes and pondered the ridiculous position I was in right now. First of all, what I shouldn't forget was how dangerous of a situation I was in. I had fallen out of favor with them. After interacting with Hoshi-san multiple times, I could see it as I was getting closer to the heart of the matter. The warning yesterday with the mochi was a good indicator of that. No, calling it a warning was just my habit of understating things. It probably had no meaning beyond stunting my progress and buying themselves some time. Until they had a method of completely erasing me, they were just biding their time. Even though they were keeping me under their thumb with threats, it didn't change the fact that I knew too much. The chilling sensation of my desk made me recall Satoshi Hojo, the boy who was using the seat until last year when he disappeared. Was he also similar to me? Did he ruin something he shouldn't have and was a waste? Damn, I wouldn't let them get rid of me so easily. Never. But were they really trying to kill me? I've had these contradictory feelings for a while now. Even though I had suspected them, I felt I had to cover for them. Even having witnessed all of their suspicious behavior, a morning like this just made it all seem like a elaborate hoax. No, that's just what I wanted to believe. Doubting my friends, covering for them, my life was in danger. Or was it? Actually, I was debating the wrong point. Given my current situation, those points were something that should have been deliberated on a long time ago. But really, when are the rest of them? Were they actually aiming to kill me? The little voice inside of me continued to torment me with these unresolvable trains of thought. Are you an idiot, Kechi Maribawa? The answer should be obvious. But maybe that sewing needle might have just been an accident, right? How could you screw up and drop a sewing needle on a piece of mochi? The benefit of the doubt can only go so far. Buena and Mion had acted and behaved suspiciously, but maybe it was all some sort of misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? It wasn't just suspicious, it was outright ludicrous, right? Buena just corrected me for lying, and Mion only asked me about what I had for lunch. Buena was standing outside my door eavesdropping for a solid hour? She was probably just ready for my phone call to end. For a whole hour outside your room, and is it normal to go home afterwards without saying anything? You heard from Oshi-san, didn't you? About what Buena did at her former school. But at the hospital, she said it was Oshiwa-sama's fault. She...
いい加減にしろよ、前原圭一。お前、命を狙われてるって自覚あるのかよ。
That's not a great thought to blurt out loud. I inwardly blurted those words out loud. Hearing myself say that so directly left me dumbfounded for a few moments. Afterwards, I had to look around to check if anyone else had heard it. My little so clearly cut a little too close to the truth. Even though I could feel the murderous intent from Wen and the others, part of me somewhere was still trying to deny that. This late in the game, such hesitation could be fatal. I knew that. But I was just your average student, a man living his normal, ordinary life. Do you think I could suddenly believe that my friends, who had been happily laughing together with up until last Sunday, now intended to kill me? Right? This time, I remembered to keep my voice down so only I could hear it. There was one thing I now understood. I was too soft. I didn't completely understand how dangerous Ren and the rest of them were. No, I was trying to understand. It was too soft for not listening to Oshi-san when he was earnestly showing me the heart of the matter. I didn't listen because I was too busy pretending to be dejected. I didn't comprehend it. I was just running away. I didn't comprehend it, so nobody had any notion to try and kill me. I needed to get rid of such naive thoughts. As I made that resolution, I heard the bell signaling the end of the class. So soon, the day was already over. I didn't recall eating lunch or doing anything in class. My friends were putting their desks together in preparation for club activities. Not long ago, I would have probably happily jumped into that circle.
あらあら、ケイチさん。帰り支度とはあんまりですことよ。
The way Sadako spoke was so typical and familiar. It almost physically hurt.
あれ、ケイチ君、今日は都合悪いのかな。今日こそ二人で大勝利。
Tina Lena's expression, which said she was really looking forward to the day, was hard to take. Hey, Keiichi, Maybe Oshi-san is just some enormous jerk trying to separate me from the others by lying to me? Swap. Trying to expunge such weak-minded thinking, I swatted myself in the face.
Keiichi-kun?
Yeah. Was Suena really trying to kill me? I wish someone would tell me it was a hoax. I didn't care if it actually was one or not. I just wanted someone to say it was. Yet another weak-willed thought. How did I ever become this naive?
大丈夫？頭痛いの？
Apparently, that was how my inner dilemma appeared to Lena.
顔色悪いよ。一人で帰れる？送ってった方がいいかな？かな？
いや、いい。ごめん。一人で帰れる。部活はみんなでやってくれよ。
Upon hearing that I wasn't going to participate in the club meeting, Mian pouted unhappily.
ケイちゃんがリベンジ熱望してたってんで、今日はせっかくこの間の推理ゲームにしたってのにな。
ケイイチさんにはリターンマッチに臨む熱いハートはありませんですの？情けないですわね。
I wouldn't fall for some dumb taunt. Without even a real retort, I just grabbed my bag and was about to get up. Someone's hand perched itself gently on my head.
ケイイチ、具合悪そうです。かわいそうですよ。
It was Rika-chan. She was stretched up as far as she could, doing her best to pat my head with her petite hand. It felt so nice, which made things even harder.
ごめんな。みんな。じゃあ。
That's all I said as I quickly left the classroom. They said something to me as I was leaving, but I couldn't make it out. I managed to make it all the way to the entrance in that state of mind, took out my shoes, put them on, and went forward. Hard in that hard, catchy Marabawa. They were, for some unfathomable reason, trying to kill me. They were plotting something dubious, watching my every move. But I couldn't hate them, because weren't they my friends? Part of me lamented my naivete, while another part lamented the fact that I had lost something important by lamenting over it in the first place. It felt like my personality was being whipped in two along with my body. If this is what Oshiwa-sama's curse was like, then it was just too harsh. Hey, Oshiwa-sama, I was wrong for not believing in your curse, but I believed in it now, completely. Your curse does exist, so seriously, give me a break. I pick you, come on. Dinner was unusually bland. It had no flavor or aroma. The miso soup that normally tantalized my appetite instead tasted like nothing but boiled water. Dad was eating with us that night. It was a rare occurrence in this household. When he got into his work, he ate and slept on his own schedule. My dad never cared about the time. So my dad was at the dinner table. It either meant he had just reached a good point to take a break, or he was in a slump.
とにかく作家のモチベーションってものを理解してないんだよ彼は。
タイアップの話だって口約束なんでしょ？そんなに反りが合わないならきっぱりお断りしたら？
助け合いの世界だからお互い様だとは思うんだけど、これじゃ仕事にな。
I wasn't able to pick out much of my mom and dad's conversation, but I could tell it was a very pleasant topic. That, of course, made the disgusting food even less appealing. Staring listlessly at the exchange between my parents, my mind wandered off to the same thought processes I had going all day long. Friends close to me? No, they used to be friends, but I could no longer trust them. Right now I was greatly lacking in allies. People I trusted, people I could depend on when push came to shove. They were something I just didn't have. Having just one ally would have been incredibly reassuring in the currently hopeless situation I was in. I put down my chopsticks and looked over at my parents who were still talking about work. The first course of action that came to mind was to tell my parents everything. Currently, there wasn't a single person from Himizawa I could trust 100%. That meant the only people I could trust were my parents. But if I told them everything that happened until now, would they understand? Wena, for example. That neighbor boy Wena, who was so diligent in looking after me, came to get me every day and sometimes brought over a share of what she made. How could I explain that she wanted to kill me? No matter how I explained, it would probably be difficult for anybody to comprehend. My somewhat eccentric dad wouldn't understand, and my high-strung mom would probably drag me off to a psychologist in the blink of an eye. Sadly, that was the amount of trust that existed in our relationship. Even if they did come to understand, what could they possibly do? Unless they could uncover the truth, they wouldn't be able to protect me. No. By informing them of these unnecessary things, I'd be putting my parents in danger as well. Considering that the victims in past incidents were often married couples, I couldn't even joke about it. For the entire Maibara family to have an accident or to just vanish into thin air, it was easily possible in Himizawa. What was important here was that knowing something unnecessary put you in danger. The most unsettling question was, how did they know that I knew? As long as they didn't know. My parents might not fall victim, that was one way to think about it, I guess. At least, it was like that in my case. After I found out, things started becoming odd. In other words, it meant the following. As long as my parents didn't know anything, nothing would happen to them. Which means that this house would be a safe haven as long as my parents were in. I knew these were just assumptions based on conjecture on top of conjecture, wanting this house to be a safe haven. That was the pinnacle of my weak-willed method of thinking. I had to concede that it was not completely safe. It was only safer than the outside. I knew that I couldn't rely on my parents. No, I couldn't risk getting my parents involved. Then the only person who could be my ally would be Oshi-san. Him, and him alone. He was the only person who understood the situation I was in. He didn't care so much about my safety, but he was, without a doubt, passionate about solving this case. It was a bit frustrating. Oshi-san was basically the whole reason I was in this mess. Now to get out of it, I had to rely on him. Meaning, it was all going according to his devices. It was just my job to look appetizing while bobbing in the waves as bait. Then, when the fish started gathering around, Oshi-san would pull up the big haul. It was slightly infuriating, but even I thought that was the best course of action. So then, what should I do? Patience was the first rule of fishing. Just keep waiting until the fish actually bites. But I wasn't simply bait. There were lots of ways for me to struggle before being devoured. When they struck, I needed to somehow dodge just enough and tag out to Oshi-san. No question, it was going to be hard. The timing to bring Oshi-san in would be difficult. He was in the city, not Himizawa, so if I phoned him in my moment of need, it would take him about 30 minutes to reach me. So I needed to run away for those 30 minutes. For example, if we set up a rendezvous point for dire situations or something, I just have to hide out there until Oshi-san arrived.
よし。少し見えてきたぞ。
I was still being chased around in the dark by boogeymen, but now I knew which way to go. I would have never imagined this would be so reassuring. Oh yeah, it would probably be best if I had a concealed weapon for when things got rough. Typically, I would call for a switchblade, but that wasn't too reassuring for combat. Also, since it was recognized as a weapon by the public, that also wasn't good. Really, when the time comes, a long weapon like a bat would work in my favor. I remembered there was a metal bat at school. I could be confident with that when push came to shove. If I pretended I was practicing my swing, then it would be suspicious for me to always carry it around. I could go to school early tomorrow and secure it. Just possessing a weapon might be enough to deter them. Also, one more thing, insurance. It could be something like a note or a memo. I could write down everything that's happened as a sort of journal. In case I suddenly vanished, the journal would be left behind. With my journal in his possession, Oshi-san should be able to avenge my death. I left my parents engrossed in their conversation about work and went back to my room. These are good ideas. Get a weapon, get a journal, leave behind some things of your existence before you disappear. I tore out a piece of paper from a notebook and made my way to my desk. Last time I wrote a journal was for summer homework in elementary school. In the off chance something bad happened, the police could use it on my diary as a read. So I should only write down the facts. How should I start? I jotted down my thoughts as they came. I, Kechimaebawa, am in fear for my wife. It made me laugh nervously. It was a line that showed up often in detective stories. I never even dreamed that it would be in the type of situation where I write it myself. I do not know why they are after my wife. One and the others were suspicious, but I had no proof. And that's why I couldn't write anything more. I laughed wearily at myself for writing such a passage draped in mystery. Would the police be able to get the hint from reading this enigmatic passage? I could only pray they would. What I prayed for the most, though, was that this journal never needed to play its part. Here I laughed nervously. It was too simple, so I wrote down one more line I just thought of. The only thing I do know is that it has to do with Oshiro-sama's curse. Was that too much? I probably shouldn't write more than that. If I wrote any more, then it would seem like I was just delusional. In order to appear to the reader that the person who had written this was of sound mind, I chose not to write anything else at that point. I just needed to add more as I learned more about the truth. I folded the paper and thought about a place to hide it. By hiding it somewhere obvious, there was a chance that they would uncover it instead. On the other hand, if it was in too obscure of a location, then there was the risk of nobody finding it at all. In the end, I decided to take the clock off my wall and stick my folded note on the back with a scotch tape. After that, I put the clock back in its normal position. Yeah, it didn't look like anything was hidden behind it. Now I needed to set it up such that if anything happens to me, my parents could find it. I looked at it from countless different angles until I was satisfied, and I made my way downstairs. My parents were still talking about work. It didn't look like it was going to end anytime soon, so I cut in.
話中ごめん。ちょっと聞いてもらっていいかな。
I never started off a conversation like that before, so my parents were both startled. They stopped talking and turned towards me.
どうしたのケイイチ？
お願いがあるんだけど、聞いてほしいんだ。もしもだよ。
圭一、急ぎの話じゃなきゃ後にしなさい。お父さんとお母さんはちょっと今、急ぎの話をしてるんだ。
I didn't think their talk was more urgent than mine. In any case, I stated my request.
もしもだよ。俺が死んだらさ。
Both of my parents' eyes went as wide as saucers.
死んだらさ、俺の部屋にある時計、あれを棺に入れてほしいんだ。
If they did that, then they'd probably find it. My memoir. Both my parents remained wide-eyed, not moving an inch. I couldn't blame them.
あの時計、工作の授業で作ったお気に入りなんだ。頼むよ。
どうしたのケイイチ？何かあったの？
Mom was finally able to ask me with a questioning gaze. Of course, this was a normal response for when someone's son suddenly talked about a subject like this. I felt bad about making them worry, but right now I just wanted them to think about the clock in my room. With the awkward mood of leaving the room in silence, I decided to go back up to my room.
俺さ、明日は早くに学校に行きたいから、もう寝るよ。おやすみ。
Saying only that, I left the living room. This really does seem like... this does seem like the setup before like a mystery game, you know, like the backstory. You know, like, we got the note, we got the mysterious, you know, talking to the parents, you know. It seems all very mystery story type of thing, and that's kind of cool to see, like, actually it's set up before the mystery, or the quote-unquote mystery game begins, where the detectives find the note behind the clock and talk to the parents. It's very interesting. I needed to get to school early tomorrow and secure that bat. Should make today the last day I went to school with Lena. As I climbed the stairs, I heard my mom call my name, but I pretended not to hear her. It wasn't something I could talk about with my parents. If I talked about it, it would only make things more dangerous. The fight that had begun was mine, and mine alone. I couldn't rely on anybody. I wouldn't be killed, not when I still knew nothing. Shit, man. Tips acquired. Not feeling so hard. Hot. Not feeling so hot. Chasing shadows. Let's take a look at this.
最近圭一君の元気がないね。機嫌が悪いのかな。
さーてどうしたんだろうね。恋の病にでもかかってるんじゃないの？
みーちゃん、それ飛躍しすぎ。どう思う？
さあね。ケイちゃんひょっとしてかな？
わかんない。
あの日ケイちゃんと車で話してたの中年のでっぷりした男だったんでしょ？
How the hell do they know that?
間違いない。
大石のやつケイちゃんに何を吹き込んでるのかな？
真剣そうだったよ。圭一君は顔面蒼白だった。
あのね、レナはよく知らないだろうけど、実はあいつお社様の使いなんだよ。
What?
何の話？
あいつが現れるとね、必ず鬼隠しが起こるの。本当だよ。
Excuse me?
あれ？そうなの？
一昨年リカちゃんのお母さんが受水したでしょ。その直前に大石が尋問してたんだよ。
そういえばサトシ君が転校する前にもいたね。
転校？レナはいいやつだよな。
で、今度は圭一君の前に現れたんだ。じゃあ圭一君も鬼隠しになっちゃう
？An empty silence hung in the air, and then it was suddenly interrupted. By loud laughter. What the hell was that? What, what? Do they say that to, like, discourage people from going to Oshi? Or maybe Oshi's in on it. No, why the hell would Oshi be in on it? We've seen him. He's an actual detective. He's just a detective, like, involved in this case. He's very interested in this case, and he wants to solve it before he retires. But I guess he would have gone to those people. Why would he go to those people? Why would he go to Rika-chan's mom? Though, because wasn't she, like, already an established person in Himizawa? Why would he go to her? Or was it before the husband's suicide, or was it after? If it was after, that would make sense to talk to the wife. But he also talked to Satoshi. Oh my god, this is really just, who do you believe? I want to believe Oshi. I want to believe him. He seems like a genuine, like, detective. Like, he's a guy of the wall. He's been in the fucking force for 30 years. He seems like a genuine guy. But what the hell was that? What did they talk about that to, like, especially to Lena, since she's a recent outside? But why the hell did they laugh at the end like that? What the fuck is happening in this game? What is real? What's a curse? Is this supernatural? Is it all plausible? Like, and we still don't know, like, what the hell happened to Tomike on that night. Like, why he whipped out his own throat. What the hell is happening in this game? But yeah, I think this is where I'm going to end it. A bit of a shorter episode, but yeah. If you enjoyed this type of content, hit the subscribe button. If you liked it, hit the like button. Want to tell me something? Put it down in the comments below. Want to check out the Discord server I hang out in, or my Twitter? Check the description below. And yeah, this has been Voidlego. I'll see you guys next time. See ya!
Have you ever wanted to play? You could